Thank you, Prashant. I'm going to start today with a confession about my age. Well, not my actual age, but how many of you remember this? The date here might give you a small clue. This screenshot is not one of mine, I have to confess, although I was very familiar with this screen. This screenshot is from Microsoft CRM, not Dynamics, not CE, not 365, Microsoft CRM 1.0. And this is where I started my Dynamics 365 journey. It was a very different product to the one we know today. We had a home page, workplace, sales, service, reports, all good stuff, but absolutely no marketing. There was just no hint of marketing. There was also no multi-currency, multi-tenancy, or multi-language functionality. These three arrived in 2005 with Microsoft CRM 4.0. Simple marketing arrived a little bit earlier than that with CRM 3.0. But there is a lot more to marketing automation than simple marketing. And today I'm going to open the lid on some of the options that you have got with marketing automation. So what we've got here is a diagram where I am showing you the effort that it takes to get customers into your business, to attract them from being suspects, pulling them all the way through that funnel to being customers. That takes a lot of effort, and it's effort that some people don't appreciate. Microsoft CRM was only happening at the bottom. So only the very bottom of the funnel, when most of the work had already been done, would Microsoft CRM be of any help towards getting those customers and helping you build a relationship. Right from the get-go, it was good at helping you build a relationship with somebody who either had purchased from you or had all but purchased from you. But the early stages, it was really pretty useless. So the effect of that was that for a lot of the people using Microsoft CRM back 10, 15 years ago, we ended up with what I call a valley solution, where we had marketing people over here using one solution, and then the sales people over here using Microsoft CRM. And I call it a valley solution because there's a big dip or gap in the middle, and various creative ways and often less creative ways of getting that marketing information across to the sales people had to be found. And it was often done via email with a whole heap of problems and lost information and so on. So what I now want to do is give you a quick overview of what that funnel overall looks like, what those layers are that get us from suspects up at the top down to customers. So you can see we've got those people, and they are gradually getting warmer and more likely to buy from us, till right there at the bottom we have got customers or clients. Now that's all very well. It gives us some definitions. What is not obvious there is it is very easy and very common in some businesses to need 10 people in one layer to get one in the next layer. So what that means is that for some businesses, not all, I agree, but for some businesses, you need 10 million people to get up to that very top of the funnel in order to get one customer coming out at the bottom. I say 10 million because that is 10 to the 8 or 10 times 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 10. That's what it might take to get you one customer. And obviously it is not possible to talk to 10 million possibles in order to get one customer out at the bottom. And as well as it being an awful lot of work, at that very early stage where they are raw leads or maybe even viable leads, we often don't know who they are. We don't have a great deal of contact information for them. So even if we did have a bottomless wallet and an unlimited workforce, it still wouldn't be possible to talk to all of these. So what do we do to overcome that? We need to understand that there are 3 broad layers in this funnel. So first of all, we've got what's called tofu. And no, that's not a Japanese protein. It is top of the funnel. And they're the people who really, there is very, very little we can do with them at this stage because they have not revealed much information about themselves at all. We then get down to mofu, or middle of the funnel. And this is where we can start engaging with them via email and a little bit more directly. And maybe down at the bottom of that, we could even have a phone call. And then there we have the bofu, and they are people who are either customers or very close to being customers. It's also worth remembering that many prospects are over halfway through their buying journey, i.e. that journey from deciding I've got a problem through to I've paid some money to get a solution. So they're over halfway through it, and a lot of the research says they're at about 57% by they reach out and engage with anybody in a supplier organisation. In the modern world, and this is not so modern, but nevertheless the world we live in, the move to being a nurtured lead happens by not reaching out and picking up the phone, but by engaging with a website. And it is usually your website that gives you that first hint that somebody is taking a serious interest in you as a possible solution to the problem that they have. So this is where marketing automation can help us. Marketing automation can help us narrow that 10 million down to maybe a few thousand, which it is reasonable to engage. And automation gives it all away. What marketing automation should be doing for you is allowing you to get someone from very, very early on in their engagement with you to a later stage, by which point they've expressed enough interest for you to know that they are going to be at least worth talking to, and you want that to happen with minimal effort from human beings that cost money, hence the automation. So what marketing automation is doing for you is gathering information and then taking action to allow you to guide that person further towards a sale or to qualify themselves out. In other words, for them to realize that you're not a good person for them, so they go away and your team don't have to waste effort on them. So what we've got is a process moving people from brand awareness to real interest in the products, services, solutions that you offer, to serious consideration, and then eventually becoming a customer. And that time will vary. For a lot of products, it is of the order of weeks. For some, it can be the order of years that it takes to get somebody all the way down. So we've got a lot of different solutions, some manual, some less so, that we can use to do this. But there is often with these a lack of results and therefore disappointment. You were given a lot of promise and that is not what eventuates. So now I'm just going to look again. This is what we are trying to achieve. We're pulling people through. And once we've decided or realized that we need a solution to help you move people through that funnel, the options, there are fundamentally three groups of options. The first is a simple email solution. And it just makes creating, typically these email solutions just make creating bulk emails earlier and easier. Then in the middle, we've got two really big contenders for working with Microsoft Dynamics, and they are ClickDimensions and Dynamics 365 for marketing. And then at the top end, we've got enterprise level solutions. So what I'm going to do is give you some more information about ClickDimensions so that you can see whether ClickDimensions is a good solution for you. So ClickDimensions really is a bridge between marketing automation and Dynamics 365 sales. And it is a multi-channel marketing automation platform. So what exactly is ClickDimensions? Well, this is what I'm going to focus the rest of this presentation on. And I'm going to start by revealing ClickDimensions to you. What you've got on the screen there is what Dynamics 365 looks like under marketing if you haven't got any further add-on. And there's really very little for you. And what there is will only really help at the bottom of the funnel, i.e. marketing qualified leads. But when we add ClickDimensions, we get a lot of new functionality. And you can see just from there, and that's not complete. I wasn't able to get a screenshot of this that showed all of the ClickDimensions functionality, but that gives you a quick flavour of it. So I'm now going to run through and show you, once you start digging into ClickDimensions, what you have got to help you move those people from the top of the funnel down to the bottom of the funnel. Not surprisingly, first of all, we have got email marketing. I think anything that calls itself marketing automation would have to have email marketing. And with ClickDimensions, those emails can be sent either to existing Dynamics 365 marketing lists, and any one email can go to one or multiple marketing lists. We can also have one email that can go to leads and contacts and accounts all at the same time, assuming that it makes sense. We can also send that same email can be sent to one individual contact or lead. So we've got a wide range of how we can send those emails. Inside the box, to help us create those emails, we have got four different types of editors. And those editors are the block editor. We've got two drag and drop editors, the old and the new. We've got the freestyle editor and a full-blown HTML editor. The block editor allows you to move blocks, pre-existing blocks, and drop them in place into a layout. The drag and drop editor allows you a little bit further. It is, as the name suggests, it is still drag and drop, and you're using easily placeable content blocks, but it's a little bit more flexible than the block editor. The freestyle editor gives you a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, editor to create that template. So it's almost like you're creating an email template with something like Word, and you can format and arrange and add images. Pretty much anything that you can do with the freestyle editor. And at the bottom, we've got the HTML editor, and that gives you complete and utter freedom, assuming, of course, you can do HTML code. You can also use the HTML editor if someone with a more technical background than you can write the HTML in whatever their program of choice is and then drop it into the HTML editor. Depending on your needs, you may choose one or several of these editors for different jobs. So within those editors, we have a scale from easy to edit up to hard to edit. So if you want a very easy to use editor, and that's your primary requirement, you will go with the drag and drop. If you're more patient, but you want some of the other flexibility, you will go with freestyle. If mobile responsive is your primary selection criteria, your best choice is the drag and drop. And the one that you probably least want to use is the block editor. And similarly, if you want something that is highly consistent across browsers, go with the drag and drop. rather than the block editor. As well as being able to take text and images and a few other bits and pieces that you would expect in those emails, all of these editors allow you to put what's called personalization in. And within that personalization, although it's called personalization, it's a lot more than personalization. You can pull any data from your Dynamics 365 database and you can use it within the text of an email. So one template, as well as having Dear Fred, we can, throughout the text, we can scatter that personalization. So that alone is very, very powerful. When you send email out to a marketing list or any way of sending to a lot of people, you want that email to look good on everybody's screen, regardless of the device that they're using and the client or the software that they're using. ClickDimensions solves that problem for you. It has this awesome feature called Inbox Preview. Once you have created that email and you've got it to the point that you think it is ready to go, you can do an inbox preview. And as you can see on the screen here, what that does is simulate what it will look like in about 120 different clients and devices. And if you get it right on all of those, you're probably not going to have many people using some other client or device. So that is the email marketing functionality. The next thing that we've got some really powerful functionality is functionality to get those leads from running around your website into Dynamics 365. And that is done with landing pages, which we can again create without HTML. But if we so choose, we can also get a techie person to write HTML. So we've got absolute look and feel, exactly what we want. And it uses web forms, which capture information from somebody on your website. So this is an example of a landing page. And the way it's done in ClickDimensions is we've got a landing page with an embedded form. So there's that bit on the right is the form, and that the data entered into that form, into those fields, gets passed into your Dynamics 365 database pretty much immediately. And you don't really need to do anything once all of this is set up. It takes what has been entered into each of those fields and it will create either a lead or a contact, unless of course the email address that's been put into that email field already exists. And either way, you get all the other information that we know about that person's browsing history, then gets tied to the lead or the contact based on the email address. And that is not just this visit. If this visit is not the first visit from that particular IP address, but if this person has been sniffing around your website from that IP address for previous visits, all of that gets tied back to the lead or the contact that is now created. This example here is created inside ClickDimensions using ClickDimensions tools. But if this doesn't meet your needs, or if you've already got landing pages and forms on your website, you can use those and you can still get the information into your website using form capture. So we've got two different ways of working depending on where you are on your marketing automation journey. So we've now got to the point where we've got a reasonable amount of information about the lead. They've downloaded one or two things from your website, and maybe they have gone all the way and become a client. But for some reason or other, you want to learn more about them. And that is done with a variation on the forms that I've just shown you. It is done using surveys. And surveys give you insights about prospects and clients. They give you that information that allows you to make informed decisions and understand what is working with your marketing effort. What should you do next for this particular person? One of the cool things about surveys is they can be dynamic. And what I mean about dynamic is somebody who has come to your website multiple times and has landed on essentially the same survey can be asked different questions. So the first time they come, maybe you ask some very basic questions. But then when they come back, rather than repeating those questions, you ask some more in-depth questions. So that's surveys. And now, of course, we've got leads into the system. We know more about them. And now we need to decide, of all of those leads, which of them deserves our effort. How do we decide who to call or who to put the most effort in? And the answer to that is lead scoring. Lead scoring is another flexible tool, and based on pages visited, forms visited and completed, or maybe forms visited and abandoned, you can work out who is the most interesting or who are the most interesting of those leads. And you do it by assigning scores to the individual pages and the individual forms. Each of the pages and forms that the prospect visits increases their lead score by the amount on that particular page or form. And so that is telling us who is the most serious, who has spent the longest on the website, and therefore where are we more likely to get a sale. So concentrating your effort on the better prospects. So now we've got lots of information flowing into CRM from our website, from emails, and we want to see those results. And ClickDimensions helps us with this in two broad ways. The first is web intelligence, and that's where you can look by contact, by lead, by account, by web page, and see who has visited, when they visited, and how long they visited. So that in and of itself is really, really useful information. That information, or some of it, is also useful to your web development team because it will tell you who are the most likely, which web pages are working the best, and may well give them some clues as to which web pages need tweaking. We also have a load of reporting ability. With ClickDimensions, it sits totally inside Dynamics 365. And because of that, all of the reporting that you know and love, or perhaps hate about Dynamics 365, all of those skills and techniques are available to you within ClickDimensions, or at least across that ClickDimensions data. And of course, we can combine that reporting with other data that we've got about those people from other activities outside of marketing automation. We can combine all of that together and start to see that true 360 view of the customer that takes us right from them being quite close to the top of the funnel all the way through to being a client, potentially raising some cases, making some purchases, all of the things that we like to see happening. So I've now gone through what to many people is a complete marketing automation solution. But as they say on all the good television shows, quiz shows and so on, but wait, there's more. And with ClickDimensions, there is a lot more. So even now, I've really just about scratched the surface, even though what I've discussed so far is what many people initially start their ClickDimensions journey for. One of my favourite features is the ability to put those campaigns onto autopilot. Set up a campaign and then just leave it. And that campaign, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, assuming you've got it right, will gradually funnel people down from the top of the funnel and move them closer to being a client. And you do that using functionality called campaign automation. Campaign automation is also called customer journey, but ClickDimensions refers to them as campaign automation. And what they do is, once you have designed a flow, every prospect who triggers that particular campaign automation will receive the preset communications or other activities, whatever you need to happen, and they are moved further towards the bottom of that funnel for you. And as I said, they work 24/7. And they are working all the time. Now, a lot of people struggle to understand what that means from the point of view of a prospect. And I like to look at it this way. So from a prospect's perspective, they have got a problem or a need, and they're looking out at the world. And for many of the sort of problems that prospects have, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of ways that they could be solved. And a prospect is often bemused. But if you get your campaign automation set up correctly, it can appear like this. In other words, that prospect is looking out there and your campaign automation or custom automation, customer journey, brings them towards you as a solution, like a light in the forest. So that's what it looks like to a prospect. What it looks like to us is something similar to this. And here we've got a campaign automation that I use in my business. And what is happening here, the short version, people are being added to a marketing list. Then that yellow box is a wait timer. So after they've done whatever it was that caused them to be added to the marketing list, we wait for a while. Then they get sent an email. And within that email, there are half a dozen different links that they may click on. For each of those clicks, we've then got a further wait for a couple of hours, and then they receive a specific email about whatever, giving them more information about the link that they have clicked on. Obviously, there's lots and lots of variants that we could do with this. And then what we're doing is creating a campaign response record in Dynamics 365, which of course helps us with reporting and alerting a particular user about what has happened. Within all of this, we can also have different actions if they do click or if they don't click. So if you send out an email newsletter and someone takes absolutely no action, you can have a different follow-up compared to the people who do take action. So that's a very cool and useful feature for getting work done with very little effort post setup. But that's not everything. There is even more functionality. And this includes event management. And this can be both online events, which recently, of course, we've all known plenty about, and in-person events. And some of you might even remember in-person events. And throughout the journey of advertising that event, selling or providing tickets to that event, doing the detailed setup of the event itself, and follow-up, we can be sending different communication. We can also check people in and do a number of other useful things. We can also send SMS messages to people. And these SMS messages obviously go out to people's mobile phones, but all of that functionality that I mentioned when I was talking about email, so the personalization, the sending to different marketing lists, all of that can be leveraged inside the power of SMS. One of the newer aspects of ClickDimensions, but not brand new, is social marketing. And social marketing allows you to empower your social media. And what does that look like? It allows us to schedule and manage our social content. So things like Hootsuite, some people might be familiar with. the LinkedIn social media functionality is equivalent to Hootsuite. It also allows us to see what is happening out on social media and engage in relevant content from our audience. We can share other people's content out to our audience. And then, as you would expect from what I have said, you discover which posts are getting the clicks. Social also can kick off a campaign automation. In other words, what somebody does on a social media post can kick off a series of emails or other actions, as we saw earlier in campaign automation. And if you've got advocates, and many organisations these days work towards having advocates, we can enable those advocates to amplify the content. So that content gets out to a bigger audience, more people may take action, and then all of the follow-on happens to that bigger audience. And that is done using the social posts and the social clicks. So here we've seen of even more examples of how ClickDimensions bridges that gap between Dynamics 365 sales and true marketing automation. And just by way of revision, that is the functionality that I have discussed today, and there is even more, but I'm not going to give you another set of steak knives. Given who the audience is today, I wanted to give you a quick comparison between ClickDimensions and Dynamics 365 marketing. ClickDimensions is completely dedicated to Dynamics 365, and that means you've got to have Dynamics there and installed and working. ClickDimensions is installed on top of it, so it doesn't work without Dynamics. But there are some positives with that, and you will see those later on. ClickDimensions also works with all of the variants of Dynamics 365. So if you've got a client, or if you yourself are still using an on-prem or a partner hosted version of Dynamics, you can use ClickDimensions. ClickDimensions as an organisation, in conjunction with their partners, also provide marketing services, and it does not require integration. You install a solution, do a little bit more technical setup, and it is there. So some of the key differences, and here I'm looking at the two versions of ClickDimensions, the basic column in the middle and the business column on the right hand edge, and then we've got Dynamics 365 marketing in the left hand column. So ClickDimensions Business gives us split testing, sometimes called A/B testing, and that's where you take an email or potentially a landing page and you make a relatively small change and you allow both of them out in a controlled way, so you can see which of those is more effective for whatever the goal of your marketing is. With email, the split testing allows you to have a test group, typically a small group, that you might split down the middle, and we'll say half of them will get email A and the other half get email B. Once we know from that small sample whether A or B was the more effective email, the remainder of the group get the more effective email. I've talked also about customer journeys and the way we can step people through a series of communications. We get that in the business version, not in the basic version. In fairness, ClickDimensions Basic is really an email tool, email plus a little bit. One of the things that I find really interesting is that ClickDimensions uses Dynamics 365 marketing lists. So those marketing lists that have existed since 3.0, 15 or so years ago. ClickDimensions uses those. And some of the people who compare various marketing tools mark ClickDimensions down because superficially it doesn't have marketing lists. But because it uses Dynamics and because it is so closely knit to Dynamics, it does really have marketing lists. However, Dynamics 365 marketing doesn't use those marketing lists. And if you're going to deploy Dynamics 365, you've got to learn a new technique for splitting your data and working who should get what correspondence. They both have the equivalent of forms that will help you capture data directly from LinkedIn. ClickDimensions has that progressive profiling. I mentioned earlier when we were talking about surveys how you could have a long set of questions and ask different questions based on what you already know. That's also called progressive profiling. ClickDimensions has SMS integration, and it also, as I've said, it does have surveys. So how does the pricing of the two products compare? Well, as I said, ClickDimensions can't exist outside of Dynamics 365. However, Dynamics 365 marketing can be sold as a standalone product. And if someone chooses that set of functionality, the current price in US dollars is about $1,500 per month. And that allows you up to 10,000 contacts. The pricing of Dynamics 365 drops to $750 per month if you're a small user of Dynamics with less than 10 seats. And again, that's only up to 10,000 contacts. It is free for an organisation with more than 10 seats of Dynamics, which of course is most of our users, but that is only including 2,000 contacts. If you want more contacts, you then have to pay for them. Now, ClickDimensions is either $500 for the basic, largely email only product, or $700 for the functionality that I have talked about, although the social is an extra. But what is really nice about ClickDimensions is you can have as many contacts as you want. The extra for ClickDimensions is if you need to send more than 100,000 emails per year. and then you need to pay $100 per month for each extra 100,000 per year. So that's just a quick overview of the pricing comparison. So just to complete the trifecta, I thought I really should have a Melbourne bridge in there. And as we've already learned, ClickDimensions really does bridge the gap between Dynamics 365 sales and marketing automation. But as well as all of that functionality, ClickDimensions does more than software. ClickDimensions helps non-marketers with their marketing in a range of ways. There is a lot of information, and this slide is it's actually a small sum of the ebooks that ClickDimensions makes available. They also provide services. So if you are working with or for an organization and you know that you need to improve your marketing, ClickDimensions can provide services to help you with that. And of course, they have a support service, and that support service is here in Australia, functioning on our time zone. So there are people who can help you in person. And with that, that is my overview, and it is only an overview of ClickDimensions. So I will now hand back to the Brisbane team to take us out and allow us to get dinner.